Hi, it's Tammy Fry, and I'm here in Shoreditch in London with Spencer from Veganuary. Spencer's the development manager, and he is pretty much solely responsible for taking Veganuary to the next level. I mean, we all probably already know about it, but he's like the main dude at Veganuary. So thank you for sitting here with me and having a quick chat. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about how it all started. Like, tell us about day one of Veganuary.
Right, so Veganuary basically, it's the brainchild of our founders, Matthew and Jane Land. So Matthew Glover met Jane Land. They actually, funnily enough, met on a vegetarian dating website as well. So just prove that they do work as well.
Get onto the vegetarian dating
yes,
site.
They do actually work. But they had an idea based around Movember, because they saw how well Movember had actually worked and how a particular month had worked so well for that challenge. So they wondered if they could do anything like that for the vegan movement. So they came up with the idea with Vegan for January. And Veganuary wasn't born at that point, it was going to be launched as Vegan for January. So the idea was that they had a little bit of a bet with each other. So Jane thought they'd probably do around about maybe 1,000 people might take part. Matthew was a bit more out there and he went with a higher figure. And the first year we launched, it actually got 3,300 people. So they just managed to pull the whole thing together, the website and all, and just really promote this challenge out there to get people taking part, mainly for the New Year's resolutions, and also for people that have overindulged over Christmas as well. And it's usually the time when people want to get a bit fitter, try and lose some weight or get healthier as well.
Well, it's great to see that people who are passionate are actually getting involved and coming up with these kind of concepts, and seeing such great success. So
absolutely.
That's fantastic. I wanted to ask you, I mean, you haven't been there the whole journey, but you must have faced some challenges. I mean, have you guys had like any death threats yet, or
not yet? No.
Anyone arriving at your house?
No, we've had no death threats yet. I mean, the main thing we generally tend to get is, and I'm sure you guys will get it as well, is when you go to events you get challenged by meat eaters, very staunch meat eaters who just don't understand what you're talking about at all. But generally, the biggest challenges we tend to face, it's from some members of the vegan community as well. So we get people who are what we like to call too vegan. So they're essentially
level 10s.
They're level 100s really. So
level 100s.
They're the kind of people who will come on board and say that you're not doing this vegan enough, you're not doing that vegan enough, and they're really not understanding what the Veganuary message is, because the Veganuary message is about support and kindness and compassion and getting people, realising it's a journey that people are taking as well. So it's not necessarily one step to get to it. And veganism's not the destination anyway, compassion's the destination.
Absolutely.
Veganism's just the way of getting there.
They're coming to
just
a
a good time, This could be the death threat, actually. So.
That could be it. Well, I was going to say, it's similar to Fry's in that although we are a 100% vegan company, that we are challenged, sometimes, and it can be tough to please everybody all of the time, but as you say, if you're practicing ahimsa and you teaching people a more compassionate way, you're doing a good thing, and you just have to back yourself and keep, stay true to your path. Any major wins? Would you say, is there anything like, I'm guessing that it's really grown every year since you started, but do you want to tell us a little bit more about your big wins?
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest win essentially is how far Veganuary's come on so little. Matthew and Jane have topped us up financially from the personal bank accounts to keep us going, but essentially Veganuary ran as 3 people, which was Matthew and Jane. Matthew runs his own business on the side. Jane, as a trustee, is obviously a volunteer, so she doesn't take any money. So Clea Grady was our previous marketing manager. She basically helped steer the ship forward for a good number of years. But we've gone from 3,300 people to when we first launched to we had 59,500 people taking part last year. And our target for this year is 150,000, so we're more than doubling every single year.
That's incredible.
And it's not only that, what we're actually finding is these people are taking part and trying it, but each year we're around about 65 to 75% of people are staying vegan because of it. And these people as well are affecting their peers, they're affecting colleagues, family, friends, so and the biggest thing is as well, the 59,500 that's reported, that's people who have physically jumped on our website to actually sign up. We know so many more take part
Absolutely.
who don't actually sign up. You know, families and friends take part, work colleagues take part, just because one person's getting the emails and sharing recipes. So the biggest win essentially is how essentially that January has become Veganuary. Media pick up on it now. As soon as we get to November, December, it's Veganuary time. Just like in September, October, you start getting to November time. So Veganuary's become a thing now.
And you can imagine how many, if 60,000 people are signing up, how many animals that translates to that are not being slaughtered. I mean, if you extrapolate that, I would say that's a large number of animals. So it's a really great, almost an activist campaign in a different kind of a way. So it's fantastic. I think you guys do.
It's just another way. I mean, when we were talking slightly earlier about the more challenging vegans, all levels of vegans have a place in the movement. They're needed. It's just that there's not one way to do it.
Exactly.
We're just another way.
I would agree with you. So, what do you think is the most important, or the single most important reason that people are actually going vegan? Do you think that it's still an animal, rights or a compassion movement, or do you think, in the light of films like What the Health, do you think that it's actually now starting to become more of a health movement? What would you say?
Totally. Anybody who takes part in Veganuary generally tends to be surveyed at the point they begin, so they tell us their one driving reason for taking part. Overwhelmingly over the years, it's always been animals, it's always been animal-led, but what we've noticed this year especially is health and environment are really creeping up there as well. So I think we've got What the Health Cowspiracy to thank hugely for that, really, but people are really...
Thanks, Keegan.
Yeah, thank you, Keegan.
Thank you.
People are really taking note now of environmental factors. They're taking note of diseases and how a lot of it's just unsustainable. But what the main thing we've noticed is that animals will always be the number one reason, but people are finding these other reasons. But what they're doing is they're going vegan because of environmental reasons or health reasons, but then they're finding it about the animals as well. So it's not like people are doing it for health reasons and don't give a crap about the animals. They always give a crap about the animals. It's not the primary motive for doing so. So environmental and health really the driving factors why people are trying it now.
A friend of mine recently watched What the Health, and she asked me to sit down and help her out with her vegan diet. But she's just really, really a bodybuilder girl, really passionate about her food intake. And she sat with me that day and she said, I actually don't give a continental about the animals. And I was upset about it, but I thought it better not to say anything. And I said, well, if you're just doing it for health, that's fantastic. And I saw her last week and she said, I actually think I'm an animal activist now. So she definitely had this major shift because she allowed herself to see and she allowed herself to open those blinkers and say what is actually going on, because she accepted veganism into her life, and now everything else changed.
So many people, I've got quite a lot of friends who, when I talk to them about veganism, they don't want to know what happens to the animals because it might stop them eating it, which is a bit of a blinkered way of looking at it. But when they look at it from other perspective, that's when they want to know about the animals. So it is literally that what you've just said. It's people just, they don't do it for the primary reason, but then they learn about it. And then before they know it, they're animal activists.
So we've spoken about this a little bit earlier, and I know Fry's and Veganuary share a lot of the same philosophies about advocacy for plant-based diets. Do you want to just talk about one or two things that you think is for advocates and even for activists that you think that they should take into account or just think about when they go out and do advocacy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think number one, don't be a dick, really.
I like that.
Essentially, the way we're going to reach so many people is by kindness and compassion, and it's just being supportive of people who want to try it.
And all-inclusive.
Exactly. If you've got a friend who's showing a slight interest in it, invite them around and cook them a meal, or take them out to a restaurant, show them how tasty vegan food is. That's the start of their journey. There is no guidebook to being vegan. There's no book that you give somebody and say, there, do it. Follow it to the letter of the law for the rest of your life and you will be and die a vegan. People, it took me probably about 6 months to transition across. So I me and my wife worked on a dairy farm in New Zealand, funnily enough, which was where we had a epiphany moment, and my wife was vegetarian and she went vegan overnight. It took me quite a while to get across to it, because it's not always easy to switch everything out, so you've just got to make sure that you're supportive, kind, compassionate with people, and don't be a dick.
I like that advice. How do we ensure that conscious brands remain, in mainstream retail? How can vegans, because vegans are conscious people, how can they help support that? And how do you think that we can change the way that supermarkets, how the brands are and what brands are in supermarkets?
Yeah. I think it mainly comes down to basic supply and demand. That the more people are buying the products, the more people are likely to stock it. Supermarkets like Ocado and Tesco want to know the latest brands out there. We did a food survey recently which highlighted what the best products and the best brands are, which helps them along the way. But essentially, people need to be aware of who they're purchasing from, and brands like Fry's, brands out there like Pulsing as well, who we work with. These are ethical companies, and people need to take a look at where they're buying them from and support those brands as well, because it's so easy to just buy the cheapest things when people really want good quality, good ethical products out there, and make sure they're supporting the right businesses. And the more they do that, the more the supermarkets will take notice, the more products they will stock, and overall, the more plant-based products that are being stocked, the more animal-related products will drop off the shelves. So it's just turning the tables slowly. We're not going to win this war overnight. No, it's going to take years. So we've got to be prepared to do it, and do it in a supportive manner.
Yeah. And finally, just to end off, what are the dreams? What are your dreams for the future? What's your vision for Veganuary? Where are you taking us?
I suppose the ultimate dream is that Veganuary is not needed. I suppose the dream is that I'm out of a job. That we're not needed to support people to go vegan because the world's
Fry's
vegan.
will employ you.
So you'll be selling so many products then anyway. But it's essentially that what we want is more and more people to try veganism and to stay vegan afterwards. But what we want as well is kind of a more blanket approach, so we get vegan mentors as well. So we get people not only who took part in Veganuary, but are then saying, when it comes to the next year, well, I took part, why don't you give it a go? And it's kind of like paying it forward and a bit of a snowball effect. But essentially, we want to reach a tipping point where the majority of the population of the planet is vegan. That's where we're really making good inroads then. But it's going to be a few years yet, but essentially we just want to make sure that we're at the forefront. We're still continuing to be the biggest pledge campaign out there. We are truly global, and we're working in supporting global brands in the same thing by making sure we increase their sales and increasing their popularity throughout.
And Spencer, I don't know if you want to tell people where they can go, what they can do right now, if they can jump online, sign up maybe, share it with friends, if you want to tell everyone where to head to.
So if you're watching this video, you can jump directly onto veganuary.com. We've got vegan starter kit, we've got hundreds and hundreds of recipes, we've got lots of eating out guides for your chain restaurants depending on where you're based. There's so much information out there, there's no reason why you shouldn't give it a go. If you're vegan already, tell a friend, get somebody to give it a go. You can follow us at We Are Veganuary on Twitter and Instagram as well, and get loads of other information, and just be kind and generous to one another.
Thank you so much.
No worries, thank you. Cheers,
Good
Tammy.
job.